Hey everyone, how are you? Good afternoon. We got some cameras on. What's up, Richie? I see you there. Ahmed, Brendan. What's going on, Tina? All right, Ed is on. Francesca. All right, make sure, Denise, make sure you guys have your cameras on and pointing at you. Very, very important. Make sure they're facing you. Very good. All right, so welcome. Hope you enjoyed the weekend. Two things to update you right now. One of them, obviously, the schedule changed because Friday we didn't have class. And tomorrow, being election day, we don't have class either. All right, so we have class today. I'll give you a day off to go vote. And then on Wednesday, we resume. Okay, so today, we're going to talk about legal descriptions. But before I start, I just want to ask, does anybody have any questions you'd like to address from the previous chapters, chapter 1 through 8, as you were studying intensively over the weekend, right? Do you have any questions you want to address right now? Let me know. Drop them in the Zoom chat so I can answer those questions. If not, we're going to proceed with today's chapters 9 and 10. Questions, question. Drop questions, anybody. Okay, one question so far for me to address. Come on, guys. Tell me you've been studying. Tell me. Tell me you've been studying. I want to see how it is. You're studying. What's your questions? All right. If anybody's watching on YouTube, let me know you're there. If you have questions, it appears we're live. We're good to go. All right. We only have one question. Nobody else has questions? Give you 3 days off. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and no questions. All right. We got visitors. Ed, you got visitors? Kick them out. All right. So Mr. Wither has a question about, can you give an example regarding annexed property? So annex is something that's attached, obviously, right? An annexation or attached to something. So let's say you have, it's not the example I will reply to that, but let's say you have attached garage, right? It's an annex, it's attached to the building. If it's a detached garage, then it's not. In this case, annexed property, if you're talking about city property, for instance, city-owned property, then we're talking about the city owning property somewhere else, right, in the boundaries of the city itself. But let's say we're here in Newark, and next to Newark we have Elizabeth, and the airport belongs to Newark. It's the Newark Airport, but it's located partly or most of it in Elizabeth, right? So they're annexing property that's no longer part of Newark, but they made it as an incentive. They paid the city of Elizabeth, for instance, for that piece of property. So it's an annexed property. It's something that's beyond the city limits, but the city still pays for that benefit of the property, right? So it'll be more or less something like that. Always remember, annex means attached to, and it depends on the context of the question. If it's something regarding the city, it's a property that's beyond city limits, and we still pay for it, and we can call it as ours, even though it's not on our turf, let's say, right? If it's an annex in a property, the residential property, let's say, it's a building that's annexed or attached to hours, right? So it depends on how the question is formulated. Two ways to look at it. Okay. All right, guys. Any other questions there? All right. Cool. So if there's no further questions, everyone, please make sure your cameras are on. The cameras must be on you. If the camera is not on you, it does not count towards your hours. Very, very important. I don't want you to have to repeat hours because of this, okay? So make sure the camera is facing you. You're centered somewhere there. I don't see your forehead, right? I see your full face. All right. And again, this is very important because either I'm reviewing or I have my assistants reviewing the attendance, right? And Zoom records attention as well. So if you're doing something else on the computer, you let us know. If you're not even paying attention to the screen, you let us know. If your camera is not on, you will let us know in our reports. So I want to make sure everybody gets the credits they deserve. All right. So I'm going to talk about legal descriptions. Now, what is a legal description? So I can tell you that this is a mouse, right? This is a mouse for my computer, one of the computers here, right? But just telling you this is a mouse, it does not describe what it is. So I can tell you my house is located at XYZ address. Now you know it's a house. It's a single family, for instance, right? Or I can tell you it's a multifamily, so the mouse, as an example. But it still does not legally describe what it is. So how can I describe the mouse? I will talk about the measurements of the mouse and the features that the mouse has. You understand? So a legal description is a method of describing the parcel of land, so the piece of land that we bought and that we're now entitled, we have the bundle of rights we're entitled to use, to occupy, to enjoy, to exclude, right? And either to gift or sell the property. So a legal description is not an address. A legal description is not a tax identification number. A legal description is saying exactly what are the measurements of the property that we're buying, or what size is the property that we're buying, where does it start, where does it end, right? So it's an exact description of the parcel that we purchased. Now there's three methods of legal description. We have the meets and bounds right here. Meets and bounds. We have the rectangular survey system, and we have the recorded plat method. So these are the three methods of legally describing a property. We're going to start with explaining again what a legal description is real quick. As I was just saying, there are many common ways of describing property, like the address, 100 Main Street, the name, Buckingham Palace, like it's a point of reference, it's a landmark, it's a name, like the White House, as an example, I'd like the biggest name here, right? And general description, which would be the South 40 acres. Now, these informal descriptions are not acceptable for use in public recordation or, generally speaking, in a court of law because they lack both the permanence and sufficient information for a surveyor to locate the property. Even if a legal document or public record refers to an address, the reference is always supported by an accepted legal description. So, if you guys ever looked at your deed, right, the document that says, hey, it got transferred to me, if you ever look at the deed, you'll notice that it says 100 Main Street, right? But then right below, or in the second page, it will be something called, for instance, Schedule A or Schedule C or whatever your town accepts as legal description. Usually they just pull from title. But you will say legal description. That's in addition to the quick reference that the address gives. So quick reference. I'm located at 18 Oliver Street, as you guys can see right below, right? Located at 18 Oliver Street. Does it tell you what kind of building I'm in? Does it tell you how big the lot size is? No. It says, this is where I'm at. It's just like a pinpoint, right? So a legal description is one in which accurately locates and identifies the boundaries of the subject parcel to a degree acceptable by courts of law in the state where the property is located, okay? The general criterion for legal description is that it alone provides sufficient data for a surveyor to locate the parcel. A legal description identifies the property as unique and distinct from all other properties. Legal description provides accuracy and consistency over time. Systems of legal description in theory facilitate transfers of ownership and prevent boundaries dispute. That might be a question. So they prevent boundaries dispute and problems with the chain of title, as we'll talk in closings in chapter 21. So boundaries, disputes, and problems with the chain of title. Now, legal description is required for what? When you go record stuff into public records, if you want to sue somebody, for instance, you want to sue somebody for work that you've done in the property, well, you need to sue that specific property. It's not just the individual, this is the property. So you're going to record something into public records, you better define which property you're going after. If it's a mortgage, same thing. They're going to record against that particular parcel, right? So you need a legal description of that parcel of land before you can record. Creating a valid deed of conveyance, right? Guys, what does conveyance mean again? Again, several times. What does conveyance mean? Conveyance. Let me know. Conveyance. Transfer. Very good. So deed of conveyance is transfer, or as Lula just wrote, transfer of title. Very good. Completing mortgage documents. Remember, for them to lend you money, they're going to lend money against a collateral. What is the collateral or the security? Is the house. In this case, is the parcel of land and whatever's attached to it. So the mortgage documents also require a legal description. And finally, executing, recording any other legal documents. Now, there's 3 accepted methods, as I was saying before, 3 accepted methods of legally describing parcels of real estate. And these are the meets and bounds, rectangular survey system, also called government survey method. And we have the recorded plat method or block and lot method. We're going to go over every single one of them. We're going to start with meets and bounds. Now, under meets and bounds, guys, I'm going to make it as simple as possible. This is not the exact definition. There's a little bit more to this, but this is what I want you to think. Meets and bounds is where the property lines meet and create boundaries. Okay, so why am I asking you to write property lines meet and create boundaries? Because when you look at the question, if the question says which of these methods talks about boundaries or sets the boundaries of a property, something like that, right? If it talks about boundaries, right, then it's the meets and bounds. It's where the property lines meet and create boundaries. Think about that, meets and bounds. Now, meets actually means measurements, distance, and angles. So there's way more to that. But again, at the end of the day, the concept of meets and bounds is how do we close the box? Where do the properties line meet and create boundaries? You got it? As simple as that. So when you see meets and bounds, or if the question is about boundaries, it's meets and bounds, where property lines meet and create boundaries. Okay? Now, meets and bounds description identifies boundaries of a parcel of real estate using reference points, distances, and angles. The description always identifies an enclosed area by starting at the origination point, called the point of beginning. Now, it's very simple. Like I had here, for us to figure out the measurements, we need to start somewhere. So I'm going to say, hey, you know what? This is the point of beginning. We start measuring from here. And obviously, because we're closing the box, where do we end? Right here, right? So what we're going to say is that we go to the property line next property line, all the way back to the beginning. We got to close the box. That's the concept. So as I was reading right here, we have something called the point of beginning, and we return to the point of beginning at the end of the description. A meets and bounds description must return to the point of beginning to be valid. The term meets refers to distance and direction, and the term bounds refers to fixed reference points called monuments and landmarks. So where does this end? Where do we stop? Okay? Where do we turn? How do we determine what's ours and what's our neighbors? Based on reference points, which may be natural or artificial. Now, natural landmarks include trees, rocks, rivers, and lakes. Artificial landmarks are typically surveyor stakes, the more common nowadays. So back in the day, we'd look at a tree and say, you reach that tree, you make a right, that's where you continue your line. You reach the rock, you make a right, that's where you continue the line until you get to the other point of reference and back to where we started. All right, so I have a property in the Poconos. I always talk about this because the property is determined by trees. There's 2 rocks in the front, and there's a bunch of trees in that particular land, and we look at the trees in the back. So if this is the rock that I'm in front of, and I look at my tree right there, all right, that's the property line, and when we're going to follow it, where this rock is, that's the tree, boom, boom. That's our property line. But trees and rocks can move, right? Or be removed. So they're not the most reliable of them all, right? But in the past, they were very used. And I'm gonna show you guys an example in a second. So many states use the meets and bounds description to describe properties within the rectangular survey system. We're going to talk about that later. A meets and bounds description begins with identification of the city, county, and state where the property is located. Next, it identifies the point of beginning and describes distance and direction from the point of beginning to the first monument, and then subsequent monuments to define the property's enclosed perimeter. So, here's an example. Okay, we're on the 3rd page of this chapter. Here's an example that says meets and bounds description. So if we're looking at this map, we're going to determine from this map, we're going to determine what's ours and what's the neighbors, or what's public or what's private, okay? So by looking at this map. One of the things I want you to look always in the map, that's the first thing to do with any map. First thing to look always is for this right here, N. And N is pointing up, and that means what? North, right? So every time, the first thing you do when you grab a map, right? Now, luckily, in our profession nowadays, we don't need maps, okay? Usually, we already know where the property is. It's easy, right? Unless you're looking at land. If you're looking at land, you might not know the property lines. Sometimes you don't, right? But north, always look for that. And why is this important? There's something guys need to learn. Some people have difficulty with this. Nothing to be ashamed of. But if that's north, pointing up, right? Then this is south, pointing down. So whatever is opposite of north is south. This is easy, right? Everybody got this. Probably the easiest part of ever, right? But then there's 2 that people confuse all the time. And that's east and west. Why do people get confused? Because here in the United States, for instance, and most of the Western countries, we read from left to right. So reading from left to right, when you say east and west, this is what it will look like. Ew, right? No good. No good. Because we're saying east and west, we would put east first, but that's incorrect. The only reason why we put east first is because where the sun rises and then where the sun sets, right? But you got to remember, it's north, south, and we. Okay? So west is on your left and east is on your right. Okay? You got to remember this. Let me show you why. The description says, a parcel of land located in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, having the following description: commencing or beginning at the intersection of the south line of Route 199 and the middle of Flint Creek. Okay, we're going to stop right there. Very first sentence. All we read, by the way, was this so far. All we read was this. And we're going to stop right here. So it says it begins at the south line of Route 199 and middle of Flint Creek. So we're going to go here, and I want you to see a couple things here. First of all, Route 199, right? And if you guys notice, there's a line right here. There's a line right here. Obviously, if it's on top, we already defined this as being the north line, and we already defined this one as being the south line. We good so far? North line, south line. So where does our property begin? It begins on the south line, right, of Route 199. So it begins in this line. So we don't need this one. We identified where it might start. Boom, down here. And then it says the middle of Flint Creek. Where's the creek? Right here, Flint Creek. So what is the middle? Where it flows, right? Remember riparian rights, littoral rights? That's the water rights we have. All right, so middle of the creek, that means we might have riparian rights. If it lets us go all the way to the middle, we might have riparian rights. So, south line, where do they meet? Right here. So this is the point of beginning. That's where we start the description. Now, so far we did not need east and west, but we needed north and south, right? So let's go back to the description. The next thing it says is thence southwesterly along Flint Creek, 410 feet more or less to the Willow Tree landmark. Now this word right here, this word thence, this simply means then. Pretty much it's saying then what you do next is. So thence, every time you see thence, it's just then what do you do is. Okay? It's just a weird word from back in the day, and some places still have this description this way. So again, what we do then is we go, now that we found the point of beginning, is we're going to go southeasterly along the center thread of Flint Creek, 410 feet more or less to the Willow Tree landmark. Look what we have here. This is the Willow Tree, right? There's Willow Tree right there. And we're going to go southeasterly. So south means we're going down, right? And then easterly, if you guys remember, right, let me put it here again, north, south, west, and east. Southeasterly, that means we're going in that direction, right? So there's no straight way because the creek has its own flow. But where do we stop? After 410 feet, more or less, where do we stop? We stop at the first landmark, and in this case, the landmark is the Willow Tree. So, boom, right there. That's the next point. Right? Landmark was a tree. As soon as we're going down that river, we look at it, or the creek, and say, oh, tree's right there. Boom. Put a stake right here. This is where our property line ends, at least in this part. Let's go to the next one. Then it says, thence north 65 degrees west, 500 feet, more or less, to the east line of Dow Road. Okay, so we're going to go 65 degrees. Guys, we don't need to calculate the degrees, the surveyor does. But when you're looking at the map, you should be able to identify this. So here you go. Where's Dow Road? Right here. So now we're going to go in that direction. It did say northwesterly, right? So we're going to go at an angle north. We're going to go up, right? And westerly. So instead of going that way, we're now coming this way, so westerly, right? And 65 degrees, and here we go. Boom. Until we reach Dowell Road. Now, if you guys remember, I'm going to show you again. It says until he gets to the east line of Dowell Road. East line. So there's two lines here. In the previous one, we identified the north and the south. In this one, there's two lines, right? And if we go back to what I've been saying, north, south, and then we. That means that this would be the west line. This is the east line, okay? So we got all the way to Dowell Road and we stop right there. We don't keep on coming to this line because now we're crossing the road. We stay right there. That's the east line of Dowell Road. Okay? And there's more. We're almost there. Then it says, thence we're going to go north 2 degrees east, 200 feet more or less, along the east line of Dowell Road to the south line of Route 199. Right? Now it's 2 degrees, guys. We cannot even see that there's 2 degrees here, but there is. We cannot even see it here. But it did say that we're going to go up, right, because it's north. We're going to go up 200 degrees to the next point, which is the south line, if you guys remember, south line of Route 199. Are you guys with me so far? Give me a thumbs up if you're good so far. Great. All right. And how easy is this? Now it says that we're going to go thence north 90 degrees, east 325 feet more or less, along the south line of Route 189 back to what? Back to the point of beginning. So we're going to close the box now. It said 90 degrees. So guess what? This is 90 degrees. So it's sharp. Make a sharp right. And you're going to go 90 degrees all the way back to the point of beginning. And if you guys noticed, this is what we just described as being our property. This is what we just did, guys. Right there. That's our property. On the other side of the creek might belong to somebody else. Right below this line right here might belong to a neighbor. I know this is the public road. I know this is the public road. That's it. We just figure out the limits of our property and defined our property. It wasn't that hard, right? Just look out for the tree. That's it. All right? So again, every time you see the word thence, it's the same thing as saying then. It's just then. That's it. Simple as that. Okay? Any questions before I move forward? That was it for meets and bounds. All right, cool. Now here comes the complicated one. Meets and bounds is easy. You follow a line, follow the other line. We're good, right? Now we have something called rectangular survey system, or also called the government survey method. Now, the thing about rectangular survey system is that they created, as it says here, they created a grid. We're going to go over this in a second. But they created a grid and said, let's make this thing easy, right? Let's make this thing easy. And every area or section of this township, so this is a township, I'm going to explain better in a second. In every area of a township, we're going to have sections. Okay? And within every section, we're going to further divide it into more smaller sections. That's what we're saying, right? So big township, right? And each single square is going to be a section. So there's grids. And then here, we're going to divide it into smaller sections. Now, in a lot of places where it's just like desert, it's easy. As they're developed, it's easy for them to define whatever way they want. But there's rocks, right? There's mountains. There's creeks. There's stuff that's in the middle that you might not be able to get around. So it's ideal that it's easy to define. Hey, where do you live? I got this square or rectangle right here. That's me, right? It's easy to say it, but it's not always possible. Sometimes it is cut within the square. All right, you guys with me so far? All right, great, because now it's going to get a little complicated. So the federal government developed the rectangular survey system or government survey method to simplify, at least tried, as I just said, to simplify and standardize the property descriptions as a replacement to the cumbersome and often inaccurate meets and bounds. Now, the system was further modified to facilitate the transfer of large quantities of government-owned Western lands to private parties. To institute the system, all affected land was surveyed using latitude, which is east and west, latitude, right? So latitude comes from lateral. Lateral means side. So side to side, right? That's latitude. And longitude. Longitude is north and south, right? So the object was to create uniform grids of squares called townships, as I was just explaining, which would have equal size and be given a numerical reference for identification. Now, the rectangular survey system works well for describing properties that are square or rectangular in shape, as I was just explaining, since can be described as a fraction. These can be described as a fraction of the sections. However, if it's an irregular shape, such as a triangle, the rectangular system is inadequate as a method of legal description. So the full description has to include meets and bounds or the lot and block, which is the third one we're going to talk about. So what we're trying to say with this one is that sometimes we have a combination of the different methods because it will be more accurate that way, right? Instead of saying straightforward, okay, this is my land, it's this by that, no. We're going to define it with a combination of both. Even here in New Jersey, we don't use the government survey method, but we use both the meets and bounds and the block and lot. So we use a combination of these two here in Jersey, okay? So across the United States, there's a mix of these. All right. A sample grid, survey grid, this is Florida, right? We don't use in the original 13 states, just letting you guys know. The government survey method is not used in the original 13 states. So that's why we have, as an example, Florida, okay? This is the grid I was talking about. All right, we're going to go over this in a second. I want you to take in a little bit. You see this is the whole grid, right, as a reference point. This is, right here is the Tallahassee Principle Meridian. And notice that there's a township here. There's several townships. This is Township A, as an example. Within the township, we have sections. We're going to zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. We have sections of the township. And then we have our parcels within the township. The meridian is the north-south longitudinal lines on the survey grid. Meridians is the north-south lines. And the principal meridian is a single designated meridian for identifying townships. So what we're trying to say here is very simple. We need to have a reference point, right? It's a simple, we're going to talk about these. These are benchmarks. We need to have a reference point because Meade's just saying, hey, that's a meridian. Well, all of these are. All these lines are meridians. But which one are we using as a reference point to start with? Just like the point of beginning in the previous description, we need to have something that we can reference in this one. It is called the principal meridian. Guys, this is part of general or the national real estate portion. Depending on the state, obviously some of these things do not apply. Like I said, in the original 13 states, these do not apply. It might not even pop up in your state exam if you're in one of the original 13 states. You guys understand? But because it's general real estate, you still need to know some of these stuff. Okay? So there are 37 principal meridians in the National Survey. In the exhibit, the principal meridian is the Tallahassee principal meridian. Then we have parallels. And notice I don't have none of this stuff highlighted, right? Parallels. Now, meridians are the longitude, parallels are the latitude, right? So the slices side by side, right? And we have the base parallel or baseline, right? Is a designated line for identifying townships. So like we have the principal meridian, we have the baseline. Then there's range and tiers. I'm going to show you that in a second. Right here. So the range is this. They're 6 miles apart. We're going to go more in detail in a second. We're 6 miles apart in each township, and that's both in parallels and in the meridians. So that means that this box right here is literally 6 by 6. Okay, so each township is a 6 by 6 square. Okay, each township is a 6 by 6 square. Again, just like we have a principal meridian, right, that main identifying one, we also have the range. Right here, township. In these western states, or southern states as well, a township is the area enclosed by the intersection of 2 consecutive meridians and 2 consecutive parallels, as a shaded square I just showed you in the exhibit illustrates. Since the parallels and meridians are 6 miles apart, a township is square with 6 miles on each side. Its area is therefore 36 square miles. Right. So, not to be confused, I'm in New Jersey, so it's an example. Most of you are in New Jersey as well. So again, it's an example. In New Jersey, our townships have various sizes. Okay, there's nothing, like I said, we don't use this method in our state, right? So when you see township, and they will identify rectangular survey system. In the question, they will put, based on the rectangular survey system or government survey method, a township is defined by, as an example, and a 6 by 6 mile square or 36 square miles. They'll give you one or the other. You guys understand? So they will tell you which legal description is being used. In New Jersey, New York, and so on, we cannot use this because our townships could be 36 square miles, and they could be it could be an area of I don't know, 100 or 200 acres as an example. So it could be totally different than what they're presenting. You got it? So in the question itself, it will identify, using this method, what can be defined as a township, and give you a few answers. One of them is 36 square miles, which is correct, or 6 by 6 mile squares, something like that, right? Now remember, another question that they can bring as well is, how many sections do we have in a township? Well, very easy. It says right here, the rectangular survey system divides a township into 36. There's 36 squares. So if there's 36 squares, and this is already a big 6 by 6 square, if you divide by 36, then there's 36 sections. And each section, obviously, is 1 square mile. Right? Because 6 by 6, again, is 36. So if there's 36 sections, that equals 1 square mile. Okay? And each square mile, 1 square mile equals 640 acres. Okay? So again, each township has 36 square miles. Okay? There's 36 sections per township, so therefore each section is 1 square mile or 640 acres. All right, as we move forward, here it is, the section. This is a township, which, as you guys can see, is 6 by 6, and it's numbered by 36. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. It keeps on going, blah, 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 all the way to the 36th, right? Each square is 1 section, and each section is 1 mile by 1 mile. Therefore, the area, right here, area is 1 square mile for each section. Now, you guys live somewhere here. Your property is somewhere here within the township. You guys with me so far? Thumbs up? All right. Not that hard so far, right? You're a tiny square or rectangle within that section. Now, this is where we go. So, township, section, and now there's fractions of the section to reach your property. So we're going to divide that section into more smaller, even smaller parts. Because my land, guys, I'm going to zoom in. Don't worry. You don't need to get into the computer. But my land is this piece of land right here as an example. Now, this piece of land is 10 acres. We need to be able to identify this piece of land. The whole section, right? Let's call it, for now, let's call it neighborhood. The whole neighborhood where we at has a bunch of people that have different sizes of land. This guy has 320 acres. This one has 160. This one has 40, 80, and so on. Ours is 10 acres. Let's zoom in so you guys can see. There you go. That's where we are. Okay, we're a little tiny dot in the big map. All right, really tiny dot in the big map. Yeah. So how do we identify our piece of land? So the size in acres is of a subsection of a township is a fraction of 640 acres, since there are 640 acres in a section. For example, the southwest quarter of a section is 1/4 section. Right? It's easy. Southwest quarter. So the acreage is of 1/4 is 160 acres. Let's go here. I'm going to do one by one so we don't get lost. We're trying to get to the tiny one. Trying to get to this one. But, guys, look right here. This whole section is 640 acres. If I divide it in 4, because we said a quarter, right? If I divide it in 4, right? Then each quarter, 1, 2, 3, 4, each quarter would then be 160. Because it's the whole section, 640, divided by 4. It's 1/4, right? So that equals 160. Each quarter of a section is 160. Okay? Now, as you guys can tell, they also say, hey, we can divide more. In fact, it says, you're going further and says the east half of the southwest quarter is 1/2 of that 1/4. So it's 80 acres, right? Simple. If each quarter is 160 acres, right? And that's where we are right now. This whole thing is 160 acres, the whole thing. That means that half of it, this half right here, is half of 160. So it's 80 acres. Not bad so far, right? Easy? Okay. Let me clear this. And they said that the east half of the southwest quarter is 20 acres. Got complicated now, right? So here's the thing. This whole thing, right, is 640 acres. Each quarter is 160. Let's zoom into this quarter. This quarter is 160. This is the southwest quarter. I'm going to show why in a second. We're going to divide it in 4 again, because it said it's a quarter of the quarter, right? So if we're going to divide it by 4 again, then now it's 60 acres. Simple. 640 divided by 4 equals 160. Therefore, 160, which is each quarter, when you divide by 4 into 4 quarters, it is now 40 acres. So that's that right there. But what they said was the east half of the southwest quarter of the southwest quarter. So if it's the east half, you got to do 40 divided by 2, and that's 20 acres. This right here is what we just identified. Okay? Because that's the east half of this quarter. Right? So let me zoom out and go back in. We have one section. They said the east half of the southwest quarter of the southwest quarter. So right here, this is the southwest quarter. This is the southwest quarter, right? Perfect. We zoom in, we know this is where we at. So let me clear this out. And now we said it's the southwest quarter of the southwest quarter. So that means we're identifying this quarter. If we divide this smaller one by 4, that's the quarter right there, right? And then they said it's the east half of this quarter. So let's zoom in. And we're going to divide this in 2 because it's the east half. There's 2 halves of this quarter. There's the west half, and there's the east half. Our property is down right there. If they said, for instance, the southwest quarter of the southwest quarter of the southwest quarter, then instead of dividing by 2 here, we would have divided by 4 again. And that will be our property, 10 acres, right? Let me just zoom out here real quick. Because if we were to divide this by 4, it would be 10 acres. Zoom out one more time. Divide the whole section by 4. This is the southwest quarter. Divide this by 4. And this is the southwest quarter. Divide this by 4. And this is the southwest quarter. It's as simple as that. You cut into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. The hardest part is remembering what's west, what's east, what's north, what's south. All right, so that's what I'm going to show you guys right now. Any questions so far? Okay, good. Because now we're going to do an exercise, quick one. Okay, so this is section 1. I want you guys to grab a piece of paper. If you have the book, great. If not, grab a piece of paper because you're going to have to do this quick exercise. The first thing I want you to remind you guys is we always have north, south, and we. If you guys look at the way this is right here, right, then what we have here is the same thing. Right? Same thing what we have. This is the north, south. Wait, there's a bunch of crosses, so it's easy to remember. Right? Just make sure you treat all of these as crosses. Easy to remember. So, here's what I want you guys to identify. Ready? Clear this out. I want you to identify this right here. Now, remember, do not give me the answer. First of all, do not give me the answer until I ask for it. Do not give me the answer until I ask for it. Second, start from the smallest one and blow out. Why? Because this is a quarter of a quarter of a quarter. You cannot fit the other way around. You cannot fit a bigger quarter into a smaller quarter. So start with the smallest one. Do not give me the answer until I ask for it. All right? Go ahead. Give it a try. Start with the smallest quarter to identify. If anybody's watching on YouTube, you can always participate in this as well. Give it a try. Ask me questions. All right, guys. Ready to give me answers? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to give me answers. Let me see who has it. Who has it? One. Who else is lost? All right. Go ahead. Give me the answer for this one. What do you got? I know some of you confused with the question. I'm going to do this again, so don't worry about it. Great. We got 10 acres, but I told you to identify. I didn't ask how big it was. I didn't ask for the area. I asked you to identify that lot. What is that? It's the quarter of the quarter of the quarter. So, identify it for me. Is it the southwest quarter? Is it the northeast quarter? Of a quarter of a quarter? What is it? Give me the whole thing. Celine said, southeast quarter of the northwest quarter of the northwest quarter. Close. Close. All right. Give me some more answers. Ed says northeast. Close. Just some stuff missing there. Tina says northeast quarter of a quarter. Great. Of which quarter? Give me everything. Joel says northeast. Close. Elda says southeast quarter of the northwest quarter. There's some southeast half, actually, the northwest quarter. No, we're only on quarters. There's something missing. Gonna help you right here. It's a quarter of quarter of quarter. That's where we're trying to get to. Quarter of a quarter of a quarter. All right, southeast quarter of the northeast quarter of the northeast quarter. Nope, I'm wrong, he says in his answer. Northeast quarter of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter. Somebody started by the largest one and not the smallest one. Celine says, southeast quarter of the northwest quarter of the northwest quarter. Something, just one thing that's wrong there. Shanice, I'm sorry, I do not know what you mean because in the state exam, that would be the wrong answer. Close, but that would be the wrong answer. All right. Ahmed says, southeast quarter of the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter. Now he's just throwing anything. Let's see if it sticks. All right. Denise, what happened? You gave me the right answer, just reversed, and now you give me the wrong answer? What's happening there? Lula says, it's the southeast quarter of the northeast quarter of the northeast quarter. Close, but no. All right, let me help you guys with this one. Hold on. Let me help you guys with this one, and then we're going to do another one. But you guys are very close. You're not that far, okay? Let's go over this. Let me zoom in. That cross right there. North, south, we. So the first thing we have is, where is this located? In the southeast. Southeast. All right, let's clear this out. So we identify the first one as southeast. We're good. We know it's the southeast quarter of something. Let me zoom in again. What you guys need to do next is figure out where this is located. The property is right there, right? But they're located in this bigger quarter. What we're going to do is this. North, south, we. All right, we got Jeff on YouTube. What's up, Jeff? All right, where's this located? It's the south, right? Southeast quarter of the northwest quarter. Very good. All right, so that's what we're going to put there. Let me clear this for now. It'll get easier. I'm going to do another one, Tina, don't worry. So we just said north. We identified northwest, right? Northwest quarter. And now let's look at the bigger picture. Oh, Elena's watching also. Oh, I'm sorry, Elena. Don't forget I don't get to see you. You guys are telling me that you're there, otherwise I don't see you. All right, so you see where it is? Our lot is this one, the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter, and then we're part of this bigger quarter. So let's go over here again. Always defined by these crosses. This is the northeast quarter. That's where everything is. So the correct answer would have been southeast quarter of the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter. Okay? You always start. It was close, right, Lula? She was like, oh my God, I was that close. Yes. I said to a few of you, it was just one letter off. You're that close, right? Shanice, yeah, sure. She just wrote, I meant to say that in my last answer. It was a typo. Anyway, so this is what we got. It's not that hard, guys. Once you identify, again, once you start identifying what's north, south, east, or west, which is very important, that's the first thing. knowing that all these are crosses, same way, all these are crosses. And you always start with the smallest one. That's where we started, right here. Let me go back. That's where we started, right? And that's a small quarter of a bigger quarter of a bigger quarter of the whole thing, all right? So let's do one more real quick. Erase this. Make sure you write it in a piece of paper. It will be a lot easier if you do. That's what I want you to identify right there. This is the whole section. I already divided into quarters for you. There's quarters and quarters and quarters. Do not give me the answer until I ask for it. All right, for those of you watching YouTube, you can always give me the answer. It's fine. For those of you live, Zoom, you guys ready? Drop the answers. Let me know what you got. But forget, it's a quarter of a quarter of a quarter. The answers that we got. Northeast quarter of the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter. Okay. Daniela says northeast of the southeast of the northwest. Ed says it's the northeast of the southeast of the northwest. Denise, northeast, southeast, northwest. Mr. Badur, northeast, southeast, northwest. And I think the rest of you got a consensus. Northeast, southeast, northwest. All right, let's figure out what we got. Lula said north, south, east, south, and northeast. So let me just correct one thing to some of you. Right, hold on. Always start with north or south first, right? North or south, longitude first, and then latitude. So north or south, east or west. Always north or south first. Okay? Lula, is that east, south, or southeast? Always start with north or south first. South, east. Okay? So let's figure out what we got. Ready? Your keyboard's not helping you. The east and west is the west and east. East and south. Okay, let's figure out. Zooming in. Where is this located? Right here. Cross. North, east. Simple. North, east, right there. Great. I'm not going to color this time. Where is that located? Here's the next one. This is the southeast. Okay, it's not the east-south. Start always with south first. It's north or south first. Then you put east or west. Okay, very good. Let's go back. And let's look at the bigger one. There. It's located in the north. North. West. Right? You guys get it? I see a lot of cameras off. Turn on your cameras. I hate to always have to say this, but it doesn't count towards your hours if your cameras are off. Those of you on Zoom. Those of you at home, obviously, I cannot see you anyway if you're on YouTube. All right, so correct answer was northeast of the southeast of the northwest, because that's where it is, right there. Northeast of the southwest. So let me show you something real quick for those of you still confused. There's this line right here. Oh. Always start with a little box because it's a quarter of a quarter, right? You cannot put a quarter inside a quarter. A bigger quarter inside a smaller quarter, I'm sorry. You cannot put a bigger quarter inside a smaller. So that's why I start small ones first. But what I want to show you here is this. There's the northern area. Then there's the south area. All right, so when you guys are looking at it, there's the top, there's the bottom. And these lines are everywhere, right? Look. Always. These lines are everywhere. This is the first thing you do to identify. Here is the bottom half. The south half. Right? The north half. So always start. Right? It's okay, Lulu. That's why I'm doing this and I'm taking my time. I want to make sure you guys understand. So there's above the line. Above the line, it's always north. Below the line is always south. There you go. That's it. So when you're looking at it, that's why I asked you to draw. You're going to have in the state exam also a piece of paper. If a question like this pops up, you have the piece of paper for you to draw north and south. Simple. And then, if you guys look at it, everything happens on this side, right? So, if I draw another line here, I don't know how this is going to look now, but this line now defines west and east. So everything is happening where? On the south line of it to the east. That's where everything is, right? All these things right here, right? That's where we're trying to identify. So again, southeast, right? Let's clear all this mess out. Southeast. Let's look at the bigger one. Again, we start off by having everything that's on the north is right up here above this half line. Right? You don't have to yell at me, Ed. I will do one more. All right. And this is considered, below the line is considered the south line. Okay? So north line, south line. Let's do this again right here. Everything that's above is the north. Everything that's below is the south. And what I did before, everything to the left is the west, right? The right is the east. Simple. Where's that located? Northwest. Okay? It's above the line, is north, is to the left is east. Yes, Tina, we're going to do one more. I just told Ed we would when he yelled at me, right? Let's go do one more. You guys good so far now? Right? Okay, good. Go. Says don't go so fast. Oh yeah. Draw it, and don't forget that each single line here is either longitude or latitude. It's either north-south or east-west. I didn't ask for answers yet, but thank you. I wish, right? I think there's any way to delete. Said it, you said it, that's it. YouTubers, go ahead. Give me the answer as well. On YouTube, they can give me the answer first, because I'm still here with you guys. Okay? Good? You guys ready? Yeah? All right, cool. Drop your answers right in Zoom chat. Go ahead. Again, YouTubers, if you want, drop the answer as well. Are you guys stuttering? All right, go ahead. Give me some more answers. Where's that located? Got 4 people watching on YouTube. I only have answer from 1. Oh, first I was going too fast, Lula, right? Now you're saying it's too easy. Oh, I did it on purpose. Tina, did you get it? Yes, no, maybe? Yara got it. Jeffrey and Elena got it. Great. Awesome. So this one was easy. It is, obviously. That's the southeast quarter, right? Of the southeast quarter. of the southeast quarter of section 1. So this one's easy. Southeast quarter of the southeast quarter of the southeast quarter. Hey, Karen, or Kareen, I'm sorry. Kareen, how are you? So yes, this one was easy. All right, I'm going to do just one more. Okay, I made an easy one for you guys. I'm going to do just one more. Make sure you give me all the answers. And go. On Zoom, please do not give me answers yet. On YouTube, if you guys want, go ahead and give me answers. Got to move forward after this, okay? Right? Lena gave me an answer. Jeffrey gave me an answer. Okay. You guys ready, Zoom? All right, drop your answers. Let's see what we got. You guys were ready. Press enter. Good. Your answer is be right back? Okay. Speaking of, will the question always be in quarters? No, sometimes I'll talk about halves. So half, western half. But again, if you understand the quarters, you're fine. And the only reason for this, by the way, most likely it's either they give you a identify this quarter, like I said, and they give you 4 different answers. One says southwest quarter of southwest quarter of southwest quarter. There's another one very similar that says southwest of the southeast of the southwest. And by drawing and identifying it, you can rule out what the correct answer would be. So don't just map it out in your mind, always put it on paper. Because 2 very similar answers, as you guys noticed with the first example, 2 very similar answers, right? And it could trigger for you to give the wrong answer. The other side of this, the other question they might ask is, what is the size? So like Mr. Badur did before, he gave me the answer with the very first drawing that we did. He gave me the answer of 10 acres, right? But it could be a half. So if it's a half, it's not going to be 10 acres, right? It's going to be 20, or it's going to be 80, or whatever. So being able to identify this is why I spend one of the reasons I spend a little bit of time with this, is for you to be able to identify the property and where it's located, right? And then you're going to be able to either figure out the acreage or figure out, again, what quarter it is, depending on the question. All right, so let's figure out what the answer was real quick. Right here. This is the northwest quarter. Going a little faster now. The northwest quarter. This is the northwest quarter, right? And this is the southwest quarter. There you go. And if you guys notice, I taught you guys in a billion different ways the same thing. Different ways to map it out. I don't know how many more ways I can do it. In the state exam, unfortunately, you cannot bring your coloring pencils or crayons. But, you know, I did put different colors, different ways to like shape it, just a quarter. Whatever works for you is fine by me, as long as you remember it, all right? So all of you pretty much had the correct answer, right? And that's my biggest concern, is you getting to the right, everybody gets to the correct answer, all right? Now, this is a very simple thing. What I want to tell you guys, one is to relieve the stress of the exam, is that most of the questions in the state exam are as easy as this. As long as you understand what's being asked, it's as easy as that. 80% of the questions, I can guarantee you, they're easy questions, right? We overthink it. Just know what they're asking, and the answers are going to be easy, right? So if 80% of the exam is easy, and you only need 70% to pass the state exam, then you should be good, right? It's a matter of paying attention. That's the only thing. Okay? That was my trick of the day. Paying attention. Wait, I think it's every day. I tell you the same thing. Telling you. Joel, yes, it's multiple choice, so it's way easy. I'm telling you, it's just process of elimination. There you go. I don't think eeny, meeny, miny, mo will work. I see what you're doing there. I don't think so. But you can always do like my business partner does. When it gets complicated, just pick C or the longest answer, whichever works for you. By the way, I've tried that out. It does not work. I've tried it. I did it on purpose even with my exam. It does not work. You know why? Because even my exam, when you guys do mine, you could be sitting next to each other. First of all, random questions. You don't have, your question number one is not the same as your neighbor's question number one, right? And whatever's answer A for one is answer C for another. So it's not like there's a set standard for A. C is always going to be that answer, you know, that's going to be great. No, it varies. They do it random. Yep. Absolutely. So, eeny, meeny, miny, mo doesn't always work. But here's the good news. There's an option, there's 110 questions, but there's an option there for you to mark the question and come back to it. So if you're unsure, right, if you're taking more than 1 minute to answer that question, then it's a tough question. Take it to the end. There's 240 minutes for 110 questions, right? If it's taking more than 1 minute to answer a question, skip it. Go to the next one. You guys understand? Simple as that. If you do this, you'll answer 80% of the questions in your first hour. And then you have 20% to answer in 3 hours. So no pressure anymore. Okay? Simple. All right, the next one we have is the Plat. Recorded Plat method. So the first one we had was meets and bounds. Now we have, we just went over the rectangular survey system or government survey method, right? And the third method of legal description, yeah, because we're still in legal descriptions. The third method is the Plat method or the block and lot, right? Very used, one of the most commonly used here in New Jersey. So this means we have a subdivision plat map. By the way, these mean the same thing, right? It's just that the plat usually applies to the whole subdivision or a big section, right? But it's a map of that section. So the recorded plat method, also called the block and lot or lot and block system, is used to describe properties in residential, commercial, and industrial subdivisions. Under this system, tracts of land are subdivided into lots, and the entire group of lots comprises the subdivision. In a large subdivision, lots may be grouped together into blocks for ease of reference. The entire subdivision is surveyed to specify the size and location of each lot and block. Okay? To make it simple, this is what it looks like. This is the Grand Oaks subdivision. This is block 8. And then within the block, we have lot number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, all the way to lot 14. The whole section here is called a block. Block of lots, right? We put them all together. And it could be bigger. I mean, it could be, you obviously, if you're within the township, then on this side, there'll be another subdivision. And maybe it's like this. Right? This is a road, and there's another one here. And so on. And another road here. Right? So, Adams, main road, whatever. Right? And then you have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, as an example. Okay? So all these are divided into blocks. This will be block number 7, as an example. This is block 7. That one's block 8. This will be block 7. And then the numbers. Okay? So if you're looking at the description, it will say, for instance, lot 7 of block 8 in the Grand Oaks subdivision of the Southeast Quarter Section 35, Township, whatever. So down in Florida, it will be like this. For us here, most likely, it will just be this, right? Of a particular road, of a particular town, particular county, and so on, all right? But this will be that. Lot 7, block 8. So we go here, and what we identified, it's lot 7 in block 8. That's our property. Simple as that, right? The other one was tough. The other one's like, you got to walk the whole lot and figure out, okay, make a left here, make a right there. Look at the Willow Tree, the middle of the creek, right? That's the meets and bounds description. The one we just went over prior to this one is, hey, figure out the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter, whatever, right? This one is, we got a map. Here's the block. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, here's the lot. That's our property. All right, so this one's probably one of the simplest ones to use, right? Because the township already determined, your township already determined cutting into blocks and lots for easier reference. That's pretty much it. All right. Now, until now, we've been saying that your deed says describes pretty much the land. Isn't that what we said? The deed only describes the land. This is yours. Right here's your neighbor, and here's the other neighbor. Neighbor number 1, neighbor number 2. That's all it describes is land, correct? Right? This is Main Street right here. My question is, I own a condo on the 10th floor of 86 Main Street. I own a condo on 10th floor of 86 Main Street. If all the deeds only describe the land, then how are we going to talk about, right? How are we going to talk about the building where I live? And I live right here on the 10th floor. How are we going to talk about my unit that's right here all the way up top? How are we going to do that? Anybody? That's your neighbor number 1, neighbor number 2, and the deed only describes, the legal description describes where the land is located. But I'm right here all the way up top. I'm on the 10th floor. If the deed does not describe the building, because no deed describes, oh, it's a single family, 2 family, 10 family. No, it does not describe that. It just describes the land. So guys, how can I describe where I'm located? Let me know. How can I describe where I'm located? Hey, Ed. Joel got it. He copy and pasted. Describing elevation. Describing elevation. So that's what it is. All right. So this is another thing I want to show you. Sometimes the answer is right in your face, right? Sometimes we overthink things, right? What is Bruno asking me? Well, I wanted you to tell me this. We're going to talk about elevations. See, the lot is the lot. That's it. I'm somewhere here. And this is lot number 3 on, this is lot 3 on block 17, as an example. It's just a lot. Now we need to describe elevation because I'm on the 10th floor. And elevation means there's 2 lines. Let's say this is 100 feet, and this is where the floor of my unit, so that's where it begins, right? And then right here, this next one is 110 feet, and this is the ceiling. So pretty much what I'm saying, guys, is this. Let me zoom in. The floor of my property is on block, listen, we're still on block 17. This is lot number 3, and my unit is 100 feet. Starts at 100 feet and ends at 110 feet. So I got a 10-foot tall unit. You guys understand? So where am I located? I'm 100 feet above. Now there's a reference point, not the surface, above what's called a datum. All right, that's a point of reference. But I start here, floor, and end here, ceiling. Floor and ceiling. That's my unit. So to describe property located above or below the Earth's surface, such as air rights of a condominium, a surveyor must know the property's elevation. Standard elevation references are called datums. And datums have been established throughout the country, right? The original datum, so where everything began, was defined by the U.S. Geological Survey, as the mean sea level at New York Harbor. So what we're saying is simple. This is New York Harbor. New York Harbor, right? And there's water, but there's the maximum level or mean sea level. So when it's low tide, we're right here. But the max it will ever go is that. So we start by referencing all elevations by this level right here. What is the highest point? Is this. And elevations start from here up. Not from here, but from the water up. Why from the water? Because once you fill up the ocean, as an example, there's no more elevation in the water. It's steady all across, supposedly. Right? There's no elevation there. You can put, look, I can get a bowl, right? Let me draw something else here. I can get a bowl right here, and I start dropping cereal, as an example, but I only filled one side. Once I start putting milk, it doesn't matter how it's spread, right? How it's spread, the cereal spread, the milk is going to even out right there. You understand? So it doesn't matter what we do, right? Let me make this transparent, let's say. The cereal is all on one side. That's it. But the level of the milk is always going to be the same. So it doesn't matter how much you put in, it fills up evenly. Doesn't matter what's there. So that's the same thing. You guys can hear me, right? Good? I got a notification regarding audio or something. All right, cool. So, but that's the same thing as you guys saying, looking at the ocean and looking at. Sorry. Same thing as you guys looking at the ocean, right? If we are on land, we have creeks, mountains, we have highs, we have lows, right? So there's nothing even. And below the ocean is exactly like this, but then the water line is even. That's why we use the water line as method of elevation. So when somebody says you're on an airplane and somebody says, "Oh, we're now 20,000, we're at 20,000 feet," they never say 20,000 feet above New York or above Texas, or they don't say that. They say we're 20,000 feet above what? The water line. That's the measurement across the world. All right. Now they said when they determined datums, they said New York was that point of reference. Now it says here that in many cases, it is impractical for a surveyor to rely on a single datum for the entire surveying area. And that's common sense, because if I'm in Texas, would I say I'm in Texas, my property is 100 feet above New York datum, like all the way in New York? It makes no sense. So they created several other datums. These are called benchmarks. And benchmarks is just making reference points along the way. So this is New York, reference points along the way, all the way to LA as an example. You guys got it? Yes? No? Maybe? No? Great. All right. So again, reference points along the way. So if we're in the middle of Houston, we're going to say, hey, this property is located 50 feet above Houston datum. That 50 feet above Houston datum could be 100 feet above New York. We don't know. It's based on where the elevation is of Houston in comparison to New York. For us, it's simple. For us, it's very simple. We don't have to remember this stuff per se, because surveyors will do it. But if somebody asks you a question, right, you need to understand what grading is. You need to understand where the property is located. If it's a condo, you need to be able to read the deed. And it's based, again, on elevations, at least basic understanding of it, okay? All right, guys? Any questions before I move forward? We're done with this chapter, and then we're going to go into another chapter. But any questions? All right, Ahmed, you have a question? Go ahead. If anybody's watching on YouTube and you have questions, go ahead and drop them as well. I'll keep on asking you guys for the next 4 weeks. I mean 3 weeks now. For the next 3 weeks, eliminate distractions. I see too many people distracted. I'll give you my best. I can't guarantee results. Eliminate distractions. I see too many people with distractions. All I'm saying, by the way, is I wash my hands. Right? Mr. Badur, faster. Type faster. You can do it. All right. When describing that apartment example, do we state where the apartment ends? So in the condo, yes, it will be stated. Yeah, it will be stated that your unit is 100 feet to 110 feet, and then your unit 6 in that floor, maybe. All right? So yeah. Okay. Zaline's asking, on the test will always be 6 by 6 as far as the section. So each section is no matter what. If it's they'll tell you it's a government survey method. If it's based on the government survey method, then yes, it's a 6 by 6 always. All right? So it's a 36 square mile always. All right? Any other questions? All right, guys, it's 7:20. I'm going to let you guys have your break so you can go enjoy whatever distractions you have. Hopefully, when you come back 10 minutes later, we'll be focused, right, guys? So 7:30, we're going to be back. If you're on YouTube, I'm going to close this session. I'm going to open up another one right away. All right, see you guys in a bit.